Okay, in this challenge, you are going to practice objects and functions. So first, you are going to create a person object that contains 3 keys: name, age, and country. And the values of those keys should be set by using yourself as an example. So your name, your age, and your country. And then you are to create a function called logData that uses this person object. It just grabs it from the global scope to then create a string in the following format. Per is 35 years old and lives in Norway. Obviously, Per, 35, and Norway are pulled from the person object directly, whereas the rest is a string that is hard-coded inside of the function. Finally, call logData in order to verify that it works. So go ahead and do this right now, and then I will show you the solution as well when you return back. Okay, let's do this. We'll do let person equals, open and close curly brackets. Name should be Per, age 35, and country Norway, like that. And then the function log data, like that. Here we will console.log this string, and you can see the first value is actually pulled directly from person.name. So we'll do person.name plus, and then s, and then plus person.age, then plus again, years old, and lives in, plus person.country, like that. Now the final step is to call the function logData and run the code. And yes, we can see Per is 35 years old and lives in Norway. Great job. Okay, now you are going to practice conditional statements. So that is the if, else if, and else statements. And the problem you are going to solve is a very common one for train companies or a bus service, which is that the price of the ticket is based upon the passenger's age. For example, if the passenger is less than 6 years old, there's a free pass. 6 to 17 gives a child discount. 18 to 26 gives a student discount. 27 and up to 66, that's the age range that pays the full price. And the people over 66 get the senior citizen discount. So your job is then to create a conditional statement that accounts for all of these scenarios, and based upon the age variable up here, logs out which discount the passenger will get. So go ahead and give this a shot and return back to me when you want to see my solution. Okay, let's do this. I'll start with the if, and if age is less than 6, well then console log 3. Else if, the next condition, that is that age is less than 18, because that will in practice mean from 6 to 17 here, because it's less than 18, yeah, that's 17 and below. However, we've already accounted for up until 5, so the code here will be triggered from 6 to 17. Console.log child discount. Okay, next one, else if. Here we'll do age is less than 27. Console log student discount, because this one kind of starts at 18, since this one stopped right before 18. And it should be up until including 26. That is, in other words, less than 27. Then we have the full price, which is for people now left in the group who are less than 67, or in other words, up to 66. Console log full price. And finally, then we have the else. We don't need to specify an if, because in all other cases, the passenger should get the senior citizen discount. Like that. Let's run the code. At 15, yes, we're getting the child discount. Correct. At 55, we're getting the full price. Very good. 75, we are getting the senior citizen discount. So it seems to be working for at least these 3 scenarios, and I hope it works for the rest. So let's move on. Okay, it's time to practice your for loop skills and your geography skills. Because I've created this large countries array here, which contains the 5 largest countries in the world by population size. So it's China, India, USA, Indonesia, and Pakistan. And what you are to do is to use a for loop to log out the following to the world. First, a sentence, the 5 largest countries in the world, and then each of the countries on a new line with a dash and a space in front of the country name. So you are to use a for loop and loop through this array here. You can't simply hard code out all of the console logs. That wouldn't serve any purpose. So try to remember how to use a for loop. If you can't remember it, you can look back at previous casts, as we surely have gone through it. Or, of course, I will also show you the solution afterwards as well. Okay, let's do this. I'll start with the for loop, because that's the meat of this challenge. For let I equals 0, we'll start at 0 because, as you remember, arrays are 0 indexed and we want to use the index in order to fetch out each of the items. So starting there and stopping before I reaches large countries dot length. Length of this is 5, so before it reaches 5, that is 4, and indeed Pakistan is the 4th index, so that should be right. And we want to increment upwards, like that. Here, we'll do console log, and then first the dash and the space, like that. Concatenating this with large countries, passing in the square brackets the iterator variable I. And now let's run this code and bring up the console, and indeed, it looks to be working. Now, we only need to console log out the 5 largest countries in the world, like this, running the code, and yes, it works. Great job. Okay, now I need your help because I have messed up our large countries array. As you can see, in first place I have Tuvalu, and in 5th place I have Monaco. However, neither of those countries are large enough to deserve a spot in this large countries array. Actually, Tuvalu is a tiny island state far out in the Pacific Ocean with just over 10,000 inhabitants. And Monaco is a tiny state in Europe that's smaller than Central Park in New York, so surely it does not belong in this array. The 1st and 5th place belongs to China and Pakistan. So I need you to help me fix up this large countries array so that China and Pakistan are added back into their respective places. And to solve this, you are going to use the 4 following tools. First, push and pop, which you've learned earlier in this course, and then their counterparts, unshift and shift, which I haven't taught you about. But this is intentional because I want you to Google how to use unshift and shift. And what I will disclose to you is that they are kind of a mirror image of push and pop. Because whereas push and pop will work with the end of the array, unshift and shift works with the beginning of the array. So pop will remove an item at the end, like this, whereas push will push an item into the end, like that. And likewise, shift will remove an item from the beginning of the array, like this, and unshift will shove an item into the array at the start, like that. So, with that short explanation and Google, you should be able to, I want you to try to solve this challenge. And of course, I will show you the solution when you return back to this screencast. Good luck. Okay, hopefully that went well. Let's do this. I'll start at the end, so I want to replace Monaco with Pakistan. Then I'll do large countries dot pop in order to pop away Monaco, and then large countries push, passing in Pakistan. Let's now console log large countries to see if this works. Running the code, and yes, there we go. Now, to remove this first item here, Tuvalu, I'm going to have to use shift. And here, I completely understand if you're confused as to why shift is named shift and unshift is named unshift. It's about the 2 most unintuitive method names in JavaScript, in my opinion. And one way to think of this is that unshift is a longer word than shift. So unshift makes the array longer. And that's just as push is a longer word than pop, so push makes the array longer. Anyway, let's just do this. Large countries dot shift. Let's see if we've removed Tuvalu by running the code now. Yes, Tuvalu is gone. That means I need to do large countries dot unshift and pass in China like that. Running the code, yes, we have fixed up the large countries array. Great job. Now it's time for a scary challenge, because you are going to check if it is Friday the 13th. And if so, you are going to log out this spooky face, because as you might know, Friday the 13th is kind of a scary date if you've seen the Friday the 13th horror movies. So you have two variables, day of month, which is meant to be from either 1 to 31, depending on which day of the month it is, and then a weekday variable, which is meant to be Friday or Tuesday or Wednesday or any of the days in the week. And if it is both Friday and the 13th, and only if both of those conditions are satisfied, you are to log out the spooky face. So just to remind you, you have to use the logical AND operator, which we learned is symbolized with these two ampersands. So go ahead and give this a shot right now. Okay, let's do this. We'll do if, open and close parentheses, and here we'll do day of month, triple equals 13, if it is the 13th day, and if it is the weekday of triple equals Friday. Then we are going to log out the spooky emoji like that. Running the code, nothing happens because it's Friday the 31st. Flipping this around, Friday the 13th. Yes, we are logging out the spooky face. And if we change this to Tuesday, nothing logs out, because this time the first condition was satisfied. It evaluated to true, but the second one was not satisfied, so it evaluated to false. And the AND operator requires that both the first and the second evaluates to true in order to execute the code in the body of the if statement. So, great job. Okay, now you are going to practice returning random numbers. And the problem you are to solve is the rock, paper, scissors game. If you try that, it's a game where two people choose with their hands either a rock, a paper, or a scissor. And the way it works is that the rock will beat the scissor, but the paper will wrap itself around the rock so that the rock loses. And if the match is between the scissor and the scissor will cut the paper into pieces. So if those rules were a bit confusing, don't worry about it. That's not the point here. Your only job is actually to create a function that returns one of the random items in this array when it's called. So you need to work with math.random in order to achieve this. Go back and watch previous casts if you've forgotten about that, or search for it on Google. That's even better. And finally, when you have coded up your solution and want to see mine, just revert back to this screencast and I will of course show you how to do it as well. Okay, let's do this. We'll call the function getHand. And inside of it, first need to generate a random index that we're going to use in order to fetch out rock, paper, or scissor. So we'll do let random index like that equals, first I'll just do math.random like that, and then actually I'm going to return random index and then debug along the way just to be sure that I understand each step I'm taking. So here I'll console log the result of running the getHand function like that. So now if we run this, we're logging out 0.05 or 0.1 or 0.07 or 0.97. So a value between 0 and 1, not including 1. So 0.99999 is the top value. Okay, first then what we need to do is multiply this with 3. Now if we run it, you see that I'm getting a value between 0 and 2.99999. 0 to 2.999 is my current range. Now, the value I want is either a 0, 1, or a 2. So I'm not too far from this. And the way I can get that is by stripping away the decimals, by flooring it, in other words, math.floor, like that. Here you can see 2, 0, 2, 1. Yes, now we are generating random numbers between 0 and 2. How can we use that to get back a random hand, either rock, paper, or scissors? Well, that is simply by doing hands and then using the random index as the index. Now, let's run this. We're getting scissor, we're getting paper, and we're getting rock. Brilliant. Great job. Now I have a fun little challenge for you. Because you can see this fruits array here, which contains emoji fruits, basically 3 apples and 2 oranges mixed together. You are going to take these fruits and sort them onto the apple shelf or the orange shelf. The apple shelf is the one at the top here, and the orange shelf is the one at the bottom. They are just simply divs that I've given a little bit of styling. So you are to create a function that, when called, puts the apples onto the apple shelf and the oranges onto the orange shelf. And you should use a for loop, a conditional statement, and the text content property to achieve this. Now, one thing you might be wondering is, how do you work with emojis in JavaScript? And actually, you can treat these as normal strings. It's just as if it said orange here instead of having the emoji. So, with that, I wish you good luck, and I'll see you later when I'll show you my solution. Okay, hopefully that went well. Let's do this. New function, I'm going to call it sort fruit, like that. And then inside of the function, we first need to loop through all of the fruits. For let I equals 0, I equals less than fruit dot length, and I should be incremented upwards. Now inside of this, we need to check at every step in the iteration, are we dealing with an apple or are we dealing with an orange? So I'll do if fruit I, that's the current fruit, triple equals, and then I can just copy this apple here. If it's an apple, well, then we are going to do apple shelf dot text content. And here we're not going to do just equal the apple, we're going to plus equal, because we want to gather all of our apples here and not wipe them out every time we run this code. Then I'm going to do an else if fruit I triple equals, this time an orange. Well, then we are going to head over to the orange shelf and do text content plus equals the orange. Now, it would have worked perfectly fine if we just omitted this as well, like that, because in our array, if it isn't an apple, we know that it's an orange, but we might be getting other arrays which shall have bananas in them as well. And if so, we don't want to put any bananas in the orange shelf. We want to check explicitly that we are dealing with an orange before we put the fruit up on the shelf. So finally, we just need to sort fruit to run the code. Let's do that. And there we go. We got 3 apples and 2 oranges neatly sorted on both of the shelves. So great job. Now, I don't know about you, but all that talk about apples and oranges surely made me feel a little bit hungry. And when I do, I visit the Scrimba food channel over on Discord. This is a place where you can share a little bit more of your personality by taking a picture of whatever you are eating that specific day and sharing it with the community. For example, Denny here, he has an amazing garden where he harvests vegetables, and Elena often shares her iced coffee from Starbucks. You can also do like Alex and share a picture when you are eating out, or if you're baking bread, we'd love to see a picture of that in the channel. And finally, my favorite dish shared so far, a nice bowl of cereal, sausages, and a couple of slices of cheese. So whatever you are eating today, go ahead and share it in Scrimba Food so that we can get to know you a little bit better. And when you've filled up your stomach and are ready to move on to the next section, I will see you there.